Welcome to our first Transformational Thursday. I'm your host, Marcia O'Malley. I'm the director of the Parent to Parent of Nevada program. And most importantly, I am the parent of a 26-year-old young man who has Down syndrome. His name's Ian, and he's also undergoing treatment for leukemia right now. Today and every Thursday that we have this event, we're here about having a cozy chat and real talk. Right now, we're going to be talking about sleep, a topic that's close to many of our hearts because, let's face it, sleep makes the world go around. Did you know that sleep issues are very common in folks with developmental disabilities? In fact, about a third of all individuals who have Down syndrome have some kind of a sleep issue, and a whopping 80% of kiddos who have autism have some sort of a sleep issue. So why does this matter? Well, it matters because beyond feeling tired, grumpy, whatever happens as a result of not getting enough sleep, it can stir up a whole pot of other issues like anxiety and stress, obesity, all kinds of health issues. So today we're not going to dwell on the negatives of this. We just want you to be aware of them. And instead, we're here going to share our stories. We're going to swap tips and we're going to offer support. But just to remember, while we're all about sharing our experiences, we are not doctors. So if something strikes a chord with you, it's always a good idea to chat it over with your child's healthcare provider. So let's dive in. I want you to meet our volunteer support parents, Mona Lund, Wayne Lund, Camilla Downs, and Hannah Barnhart. So Wayne and Mona, you want to introduce yourselves?
Sure, thank you so much. Our son is Noah, and he is a wonderful individual who has Down syndrome. He's 24, and he struggled with sleep most of his life. When I say that, it's not that he couldn't sleep. That was never the problem. He could sleep. He would sleep anywhere and everywhere, and sometimes at the most embarrassing situations. So his problem was never seeming to have enough sleep. So that's what we'll be talking about and how we've worked towards a solution for him.
Great, thanks so much. Camilla?
Hi, I'm Camilla Downs, and I actually have two kiddos with disabilities, but the one we're talking about tonight would be Thomas, and they are 18. For about the past year and a half, we've been trying to address a sleep issue, but they've had it longer than that. They have level 1 autism, ADHD, anxiety, and major depression. So their difficulty is in staying asleep when they do finally fall asleep and getting sound sleep. So they feel tired all the time. And I'll share more about our process and where we're at in the process later.
Great, thanks, Camilla. And Hannah?
Thanks, Marcia. Hannah Barnhart here with a kiddo. Her name is Vanessa. And at 7 years old, she was diagnosed with pituitary microadenoma, so a benign brain tumor. And she is now able to manage her sleep, but when that first started, was a little bit of struggle, hormone imbalance and everything. So I'm happy to share what tips and tricks I was able to help her with and some eating patterns and sleeping patterns that we were able to manage.
Love it. Thanks so much. So I'll just add to the pot. My son has sleep apnea, and I'm trying to remember the medical term. It was something like, extreme sleep apnea or, critical sleep apnea, something that was like, OMG, get him down to the hospital right now. We've got to operate. He had to have his tonsils removed, his uvula. So they basically carved out his throat to help that airway passage be open so that he didn't, keep waking up all night long. So we've been through the surgery. He's had a CPAP machine that he used for a couple of years, and then he decided he didn't want to use it anymore. And, once your kiddo becomes a young adult, they make decisions, and they don't always make decisions that you or I would like to make. I'm just wondering if that's true for any of you with your experience. Have your kids kind of, as they've grown older, taken charge and decided they didn't want to do something that you thought they might be benefiting from, or what was that like for you?
So Noah also has sleep apnea. And so we got him, and he's been on it for a year and a half or so.
Probably about that.
And when he first went on the apnea machine, the CPAP machine, he was not, first he wouldn't get it out of the box.
2 weeks.
Yeah,
2
before he
weeks.
took it out
It
of the
sat
box.
there, and they had shown him what to do. We thought he'll never remember, but he doesn't always want help with these things.
And so then once he started using it, if he woke up, he would take it off. So he'd only get an hour or two a night on it. And so when he had his next examination, and I think Mona coached the doctor, right, about he needed to talk to Noah about, because of the insurance had threatened that we weren't going to get the benefits from the
Right.
CPAP machine because they could see his readings and he wasn't using it enough. So Mona coached the doctor about how sometimes things don't come as well from us as it does from him. So he talked to Noah very clearly about you're going to lose the CPAP machine if you're not on it more often. So things have completely turned around, and he walks in almost every morning and shows us his My Air app is how you track it. And he says, see, I've got 100 on my sleep.
By the way, once he decided he was going to try out the machine, he completely hooked it up himself, remembered exactly how everything went, and started. And we've talked to a number, I know I've talked to a number of people that if that was their child's issue who has Down syndrome, a lot of times they just can't accept the machine. And several people have ended up with a surgery in lieu of the machine that connects to the back of the tongue and moves, gives it a signal, almost like a pacemaker, pushing the tongue forward. We feel very fortunate that he has been able to do it. That said, he didn't have the tonsil issue, that was checked. He didn't have the adenoid issue, that was checked. And we waited probably far too long to get the diagnosis because we just, I don't know, I guess I wasn't informed enough or did not realize that that could really be the issue. We knew he could snore, we knew he fell asleep. He still needs a lot of sleep. Even with the CPAP, he needs more sleep than most individuals. He needs more recovery time, but it has made a huge difference in his alertness and ability to function and be productive. But he's 24. So it's been probably when he was 22, all those years, all through school, falling asleep in meetings, falling asleep in trainings. It's been a challenge. So we're really glad that we have something that appears to be working for him.
Thomas, since at about the age of 15, they've kind of started, I've been transitioning them to take over talking with the doctors and such. And so they have been telling their pediatrician at that time that they were having these difficulties and it just wasn't going anywhere. So they finally, I think about a year ago, about a year and a half ago, got the pediatrician to finally give them a referral to the pulmonologist, who referred them to the for the quick at-home sleep study, get diagnosed with apnea, but a mild case of it. But they're being affected by it strongly, if that's all that's going on. And they tried the machine. It helped maybe the first week, and then it wasn't helping much anymore. They would wake up in the middle of the night and take it off, but they didn't even know they were doing it right. They were just they wake up and it was off. So they are scheduled for one of the overnight studies. Not next week, but I think the next week. And so they're 18 now. So they're doing this all themselves. They're getting a great lesson in being their own advocate because they've had to push everybody along the way on this to do their darn jobs. Okay. It's not like, okay, we'll do that. Well, you wait a week and somebody hasn't sent the stuff. So they have to call and say, where's the stuff? You were supposed So yeah, so they're getting a good lesson in that, but they're level 1 autism, so they are able to do that. But it does create, it brings that anxiety up, right? Because they have the anxiety. So yeah, I don't have to have that with them. It's my other one that decided not to do anything about their issues. But Thomas, they are staying on top of it. Although they are very frustrated with the system and how it works and how people don't do their job, and you have to stay on top of them. So they've had a good teacher in that area, thankfully.
Yes, I think the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Hannah, how about you?
So in my situation with Vanessa, when she got diagnosed with that benign tumor, her hormone levels changed. So she went from being, a bouncy 7-year-old little girl to overnight a young woman, basically, per her hormone levels. And so every day since she was diagnosed, we'd have to make sure that she was eating the right things and she was getting enough activity, because she would be up till like 10 p.m., 11 p.m. And for a week there, we couldn't figure out what was going on. But the doctor said, well, her body is basically changing from, like, as you would think of a butterfly, from a caterpillar, to a butterfly. She was just changing, and so rapidly. And so one of the things that we did do is sort of create a schedule. She didn't like that. Imagine, an 8-year-old going, why do I got to do this, mom? Why do I got to go there, mom? Why do I have to like have enough, energy this time so I can have some downtime by a certain time? But that worked out to kind of get the whole family involved. So at that point, I had my husband, he traveled a lot. So when he was off, he would kind of help implement that. And then my in-laws were also in town to help manage that. And part of that, her transition, she had early menses. So really, truly becoming a woman, that also created more stress, as Camilla said, and anxiety, all the changes that her body's going through. And on top of that, not really getting a full sleep, because she would have weird, as us ladies would know, hot flashes at an age of 8. What is that? It's not just because it's hot out. I mean, it's winter outside, but she is, sweaty all the time. So the doctors definitely did help as I pushed. And I just was lucky enough and blessed to be around doctors at that point in time when I was still in my clinical role. So I had that support. But having family and a good community support really helped us out a lot. And beyond that, I don't think I would have been able to really thrive with it, and for Vanessa to also thrive with it, because part of that, everybody saw her as a little girl, the ones that knew her, but everyone outside of our circle didn't know that she was still a little girl. So that really created anxiety as well. But that's my story.
I think this is all really interesting because I'm reflecting on my own experience, and I think Ian was younger. If I recall, he was probably about 14, I think, when he had that initial sleep study done, and that's when his ENT recommended the surgery. And so it's been, quite a while since then for him to be able to deal with things. But I also feel like the last couple of years, they've been such a blur for various reasons. The pandemic was such an odd time. And during that time, that was when Ian decided he just was kind of done with that CPAP machine. He had, and he had nothing else to do. I mean, he had to stop working because everything was shut down. We couldn't really visit friends. We couldn't go out and do stuff. So he did sleep, and then he has always been a very late night owl. And I know some of that comes from me because I'm kind of a night owl, but not like him. Like going to bed at 3:30 in the morning, getting up at noon. I mean, I might have done that on very rare occasions back in my 20s, but I, not like that anymore. But I think the interesting thing is that he will get up and he will go to bed earlier if he knows he's got something to get up for. So I think that's the big challenge right now, to kind of work on that. And, since he was diagnosed with cancer, it's like, well, what's the real important thing to pay attention to here? Who cares about your CPAP machine? But, if you can sleep, great. But I don't know if any of you had any big issues with communicating with medical professionals, or did you feel like you really partnered with them on this? And I know in your case, Camilla, Thomas really has taken the lead on it.
Yeah.
But do
Yeah.
you
Well,
coach him a bit, or how does all that
yeah,
work?
definitely. But part of it was they were, when they turned 18, I can't have anything to do with it anymore, right? And because I said, we could do a supported decision making and a power of attorney just for me helping you on this if this is creating too much anxiety. And they was like, no, I want to try and do it on my own because I need to learn how to do this. But I did coach them and listen to their frustrations. And because it's not as simple as like, okay, the pediatrician needs to do the referral. They were still 17 at this point, so I was able to get involved in that one. So they didn't do the referral. So I sent them a message to the portal, and it was vital because they were so tired, and they're in school. They're doing the dual credit program at TMCC, and they were so tired. And I said, we got to get this done. So we had to stay on them to get that. And then they got to Renown Pulmonology. They got them in right away, actually, because they had a cancellation. So that worked out really well. But getting I don't know who the company is, Nevada Sleep Diagnostic, getting them to do what they were supposed to do, set the appointment, get the machine, and then get the mask, all of that. It was just a nightmare. And I think the appointments are like 6 months out with these places usually. And it doesn't matter how, I need some sleep, right? I cannot even function hardly. They come home and have to take a nap. So it wasn't a very smooth experience at all. And getting to this point, they turned 18 in last November. We started this process when they were 17. Even though they'd had the problem for longer, it took a year or two to get somebody to listen to them that something was going on. And it wasn't just the meds they were taking for the depression, for the anxiety, because they just take a lot of meds. Because they have suicidal ideation also. So yeah, it's not been a smooth process, and there's not been relief yet. But they're hopeful with this overnight study coming up in a couple of weeks.
That's one thing I would love to speak to. The overnight study itself is its own challenge. And we decided we would try it first at home because, of course, it's just easier to do it at home. So I hooked everything up. He pulled it off within like no time flat. It didn't work well. We did it a couple times, but we couldn't get, I think we might have gotten a very short amount of readings, but the pulsometer,
Yeah.
the little finger thing that lights up, didn't seem to be lighting up. So we let them know, and they said, oh, we're going to need to send you all new equipment because you're supposed to turn it around like in a day or 2 days. You have to get it right back out and send it to them. So that bought us a little time. That was a good thing. The bad thing is, in the interim, I broke my leg. and I was sleeping on a different floor than he was. And my original plan was to just stay in the room and be sure that everything stayed on if possible. Well, as it turned out, by the time the equipment that was not faulty came, we were on different levels of the house. And he said, I'll do it. I thought, fat chance, not happening. So he comes down one day and says he did it. Anyway, we had no idea if he would have anything. So we sent it in, and I'll be darned if he did not hook up everything up correctly, had enough information that they could go from that and determine that he did have pretty severe apnea, even though most of the time he was on his side, because it's usually more noticeable on the back. And they could tell positions and everything. It's very interesting that way. So they were able to do a diagnosis. And then the overnight is to determine levels on the machine and everything. And I was very worried about that too, because there are little probes all over and electric wires going everywhere. And I did not know how we would handle any of that. Fortunately, they had wonderful personnel where we worked
Yeah.
fabulously with him, and he was extremely cooperative. So we've just been very grateful, feel very blessed that he was able to get through it as well as he was, to the point that he could get the machine, because those hurdles would be enough to stop many people from even getting to the sleep
Well,
study.
yeah. Thomas did the at-home overnight study, and he did it himself and got good results. And that's where the diagnosis came from. I forgot the word, but it's not a severe sleep apnea, a mild case. I'm not sure if that's the term that was used, and then got the machine and got, everything. But it hasn't been helpful. So that's why Thomas is the one who pushed for the away from home overnight study. So we'll see what comes of that.
Yeah, I hope that helps, because in Ian's case, he did the overnight study first. And then a couple of years later, they wanted to check, well, I don't even know how long it was because I can't remember anymore, but it was sometime following the surgery after he'd been using the CPAP machine, to do it at home. And it still showed he had apnea, which was disappointing. I thought, if you go to all that trouble of carving out his throat, wouldn't you think
Yeah.
that would help? I don't know.
But there are two types, and one of them is the blockage, and the other one is neurological, where where somehow they're not getting prompted neurologically to take the breath. And they can have a combination of both. In our son's case, he does have a combination of both. But fortunately, the CPAP is enough to get it going. But I can see where that could be problematic, even if there isn't an obstruction.
Right. Now, Hannah, how does your daughter deal with sleep now? Because she's significantly older than when she was diagnosed, right?
Yeah, she's 15 now. Gosh, turning 16. So it's definitely they call it the years of I'm okay, mom. I'm fine, mom. It's okay. So I get what is it? The singular phrases response. So as far as kind of leading back to what you guys were talking about, at first they wanted to actually medicate her and to get the sleep going and have like a steady pattern so she's not, waking up odd hours and whatnot. And I told them, I said, so wait a minute. And mind you, she was 8 years old, so I kind of had to be the advocate for her. Then I told him, I said, okay, so first of all, she already has the hormone imbalance, and you want to throw in medication with all of the imbalance that's going on right now, guys. They forgot that I went pre-med back in the day. So I'm like, I kind of have an idea of how these things works, guys. You can't just kind of throw things at me and say, oh, it'll be okay, right? So I had to, it reminds me, well, I didn't know you then, Camilla, but now it reminds me of like, oh man, I did have guts back in the day to say, no, you can't do that to my kid. Let's figure something else out. And so that's when we did talk to her neurosurgeon. And mind you, this was back in Alaska. So we had very limited, even much so, here in Nevada, of specialists. And so it was a neurosurgeon that we had to talk to. So they didn't have a neuro pediatric doctor even. So, and that was one of his suggestions. So to his credit, I'm like, okay, well, good for you. You don't really deal with a lot of pediatrics. I kind of don't have a choice. But he suggested that to try to do activities. Currently, now that she's a teenager, as you mentioned earlier, she kind of wants to do things on her own. So I now have to just kind of remind her too that, so her eyes, one of the indications that her tumor, so it shrunk, but one of the indications that it could grow back is her vision. The very urgent one is she lost her sight. That's when we go straight to the ER, do not pass go, have to check her out, what happened. So she has to remind herself to wear her glasses. I've set reminders and she hates wearing them. And I said, you want me to do the whole old grandma thing where I put it on a leash around your neck? Because that does affect your sleep when your eyes are so tired that you tend to sleep in the middle of the day when your rhythms aren't right. And then so you're wide awake at night. When she should have been wearing them to her prescription because she needs it. And so we've been trying to manage that to make sure she wears it so she's not having to be awake at night. She is kind of, I call her my little polar bear since she was born in Alaska. She hates the summertime here. So both her and my husband like it cold in the house, as in it has to be 60 degrees or below. And so I have to walk around today. I'm lucky enough they're not here, so I'm walking around in my shirt. So that's one of the things that the doctor has also figured out for her balance of her hormones. Her body prefers it colder to sleep. So we've tried to have that as well at night, as to make sure the temperature in the house is conducive enough for her so that she can sleep throughout the night. I'm freezing my behind, but that's okay. I've got coats and blankets and whatnot.
You know, that's interesting because Thomas has always actually liked sleeping on the floor. And I know that there's there's a lot of people in the neurodivergent community who like sleeping on the floor and they sleep better on the floor. It's just so interesting. So yeah, they're like, they're getting ready to go to college. And it's like, I'm just going to go back to sleeping on the floor again. It's like, okay. It's like, so I find that's when you said that her body does better with it cold, that made me think of that the environment has so much to do with it too, on top of the diagnosis. I've always just been hands off. However you need to sleep that way. I don't care if it's different than the way everybody else sleeps. Do what works.
Yeah, and I think we make assumptions about how the rest of the world sleeps. I think if people really talked about how they sleep, ours is like a circus in the middle of the night. My husband will be sick of our bed. He'll head off to the guest room because we have a futon in there and he likes a really firm bed. So he's there. Ian's probably still up at that point, hasn't even gone to bed. And he likes to have a window open. So even in, the cool winter weather, he'll have a window open so he has cold air coming on him as he sleeps.
Yeah, I'd say same here. Yeah. I'm like, I want to be in the bed at 10, and I want it quiet. And so you got Lillian, the older sibling, who has a chromosome deletion and level 2 autism and anxiety and a mild intellectual disability. She's a night owl, but I finally got her to understand, I need it quiet so I can go to sleep. And it's important that I have enough sleep, right? But so she does her headphones and, keeps quiet in there. And then you got Thomas, who ends up staying a little bit late, but not as late as her, doing their work, but they like noise. So they have a fan in there that makes this horrible noise. I'm like, oh my God, I would not be able to go to sleep with that because I was going to throw it away. And they're like, no, I like that. So, yeah, same thing in our house. I bet most people with kids, right? And especially kids with differences, got all kinds of things going on with the nighttime routines.
Mhm.
So we've had similar problems with Noah and his choice of bedtime. And like you said, they're an adult, so it's not like we control it, but we do play with the phone so that it shuts down. So that makes it a little easier for him to feel like he doesn't have anything else to do.
Yeah, and he knew he needed support in adjusting that at night because he was working and he couldn't get up. So he was on board for that, but need a little bit of help to set those settings, because when he had to be ready to go and couldn't make it up to get ready, that was creating a problem for him.
Mm.
So, but now he hasn't been working recently. And so things are very relaxed and
Mhm.
it isn't really at issue. And he isn't up the middle of the night usually, but when we go to bed, usually he is still up. So that is a challenge, but
Yeah, in the beginning, it was very much of a struggle because she felt like, and this is Lillian, not Thomas, she felt like I was uh, like, you're trying to control me. Oh my God, I'm not, I don't care. I was like, you can stay up as late as you want. I don't care at this point. I just need you to be quiet so I can go to sleep because your liberties doing what you want is infringing on me, right? So yeah, we had a good long while of that, but we have finally come to a place of understanding. Making sure she gets everything done out here that she needs to get done out here, and gets in her room and closes the door, and does what she needs to do in there with her headphones on. And there's some mornings when I get up and I'm like, oh my God, she hasn't even gone to sleep. What, but she's 22 and I'm not her guardian. So,
Mhm.
you know,
I know there's that dignity of risk that I just feel is really important, to give my kiddo. And, in doing so, you help them through things that they fotch up.
yeah. Mhm.
Last
Yeah.
week, I was in the middle of a webinar I was attending and had been very focused on, my work. I was in my home office and I heard the front door knock and I knew it was his music therapist coming.
Mm.
And I hadn't paid any attention to whether I heard, feet walking around or anybody milling about in the kitchen, anything like that. He had completely, he slept right through. So I had to get up and, leave the webinar, get her settled, get him awake. And the therapist was great. She was like, oh, no big deal. I'll just come in and I'll wait for him. And I thought, yeah, and I'm the mom. I'm the one who's furious with him,
Mhm.
you know. But that was
Yeah.
a
Well,
very
yeah.
rare thing. He hasn't missed because he looks so forward to, having fun things like that in his life, and
Mhm.
he doesn't
Yeah.
usually mess that up.
There's definitely something to be said for um, trying to be hands off and letting them learn their own lessons about decisions that they make, with Thomas as well, because having been such an advocate and involved with Lillian, Thomas's older sibling, she's 22 and he's 18, was very hands-on, because seriously, there are so many people who just you have to stay on top of to get to do anything when you have a child that has a disability. And so it's very hard for me to not stay involved with Thomas, because we didn't go the same route as I did with Lillian. And in that regard, where they want to go to college, uh, it ended up, we just a few weeks ago found that there's a snag we cannot overcome, that had they done better looking into it and paying attention to details, they would have seen. And so it was a very devastating lesson for them to learn. And we're talking, it was a crisis day when this came to light. And so that those can be very difficult times. You know, they were very harsh with themselves, like you know, saying all kinds of horrible things about themselves. And you know, this is somebody who already has major depression and suicidal ideation, you know, so they tend toward that direction. Like I did this and I'm horrible and I'm an idiot and I'm stupid and I can't believe I did this. So yeah, so you have to definitely come in and say, everybody makes mistakes. You just made a mistake, and now you know how to do things differently when it's a situation where there's a lot of wheels in the, you know, a lot of things involved, and got to pay attention to all the details. So that was a couple of days that was very difficult for us and for him.
Gosh, raising our kids is such a challenge sometimes, huh? But what an incredible joy. Well, I tell you, you guys, we've done our 30 minutes here. It went really fast. I don't know about you, but I felt like there's so much more to say. Do you have any final thoughts before we go that you'd like to share with folks viewing?
I have
Sure.
one little thing. So everyone has their little bedtime rituals, and we've all heard of good night, sleep tight, don't let the bed bugs bite. Well, he has an intellectual disability, and at our house, it's let the bugs bite. We heard that for a long time. Sometimes we got it to don't let the bugs bite after working on that for months. But usually at our house, it's let the bugs bite. So wish everybody will sleep better.
That's hilarious.
Let the bugs bite. That's great. Hannah, any final thoughts?
I just have one final thought that I look forward to what you guys are, you know, teaching your kids now. I still have a couple years because she's still under my care. So yes, bed night routine definitely has helped me since she started a little bit younger with her stuff with sleep. But now that she's older, I'm having to mitigate that. So I definitely took a lot of advice from what you guys have said, to let her take that risk, you know, because she did wake up late one morning and I didn't wake her up and she was late for school. And she had to, you know, she missed all of this fun stuff that she had to do extracurricular the rest of the day. Because I told her, I said, you were late for school. So guess what? You don't get to do any of the fun stuff later in the day. So look forward to that.
We also
Yeah.
celebrations when there's something that's a challenge, and he's working towards that. He knows when he's done something that was hard, and he'll set up his own celebrations. He just got a new job, so now the sleeping is going to become more important and the schedule is going to become more important. But he set up a celebration and wanted family members there for getting the new job. So he knows how to pick those things out. And I think anything, the first night he slept through the CPAP and came in with 100, I think he wanted, I don't remember what it was, but there was
It's
something.
usually Yogurt Beach.
Usually,
Yes.
he'll come up with something. I did this. Look at this. Let's celebrate. And I think that's a really important key in all kinds of elements, to celebrate those little steps towards success when they do have to do with their own choices and behavior.
Mhm.
Definitely, I'm going to second that celebration, because that's something that I've done with them since they were 1 and 5. That's when I became a single mom. And so I made that a very important piece of their childhoods, was celebrating these things. And so that especially Lillian, you know, when she goes to a doctor's appointment, she's going to treat herself afterwards. We got to stop somewhere and, you know, so she's got that down. And my other piece of advice is just to talk to other parents in this community, talk with them, become a part of the community, immerse yourself in the community. And I know some people don't like social media, but the Facebook groups here, our special needs Facebook groups here, are phenomenal. it's a phenomenal resource for getting information. In the search feature in that in those Facebook groups, I use those all the time. Like I was just looking for a gynecologist for Lillian, right? And I needed somebody who works well with the special needs disabled person and someone with autism, all of that stuff. You can't just go to anybody. You got to know that you're going to somebody who is not going to make it a traumatic experience, because we're doing therapy for past traumatic experiences. So last piece of advice, or additional piece of advice.
That's all excellent. You all, thank you so much for taking your time out to share all your stories and your insights and your wisdom. I think conversations like this are what really have helped me to make it this far. You know, if I hadn't had that parent conversation, the parent support that comes out of it, I know that I wouldn't have gotten as far. I mean, I'm a strong advocate. I definitely have, you know, whatever kind of personality or genetics that make me a person who just really wants to forge ahead and be an advocate on that level. But you know, conversations like this just take me to a whole nother level and help me to figure out, oh, well, maybe I didn't consider this, or maybe something else might have been a better thing, or just to feel like I'm in the company of compadres, you know.
I mean,
So
we can get stuck in our own, just going over and over the same thing. And sometimes just talking with other people helps us break through and see
yes,
something from a different point of view, right?
exactly.
So that, yeah, vital. I mean, I wouldn't have, Lillian's chromosome disorder is chromosome number 18, and there's the chromosome 18 Registry and Research Society. I connected them with them when she got her diagnosis at 3 years old. And if not for them, yeah, same thing, it is vital to connect with other parents.
Yes. So stay connected to us. Thank you all for
Yes.
coming here to view this, and be looking forward to more wonderful topics that we're going to be bringing up with our Transformational Thursdays. So thank you, and we'll
Thanks
see
for
you
having
soon.
me. Bye.
Bye.
Much.